don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I'm at a bookstore, I kind of get lost between all the bookshelves. We do have the tags of the book genres to help us find what kind of book we want, but do you really know about the genres? For example, what really is a sci-fi book? I've never read a sci-fi book. I have no clue. Like, what kind of book is a dark academia? Would I like it? What about romantasy? Is it adult, young adult? What is it? So maybe you're a millennial like me and you have no clue about these new types of genres, or you're just someone, I don't know, that is still persisting on their New Year's resolutions to try to start reading. Kudos to you, don't give up. You may look for guidelines about what is that genre about, or maybe what type of person, what type of personality fits that genre. And that's what we are talking about today. So yes, I could make a video just telling you about the genres, giving you guidelines and some recommendations, but I want to make it fun. So I looked for stereotypes of readers based by genres, because we all know that romance people are sensitive, they're soft. If you go to the mean side, you could say they are shallow. We know these types of stereotypes, right? Right. So if we have this type of stereotypes for romance people, do we have the same for the other types of genres? So let's talk about book genres, if you fit or not in this quiz, and have some fun. You really thought only romance people have stereotypes? Sci-fi fans, it's your turn now. Let's start the first one. If you like adrenaline, the fight and fly response, if you are the observant type, possibly overreading people's corporal language, and because you are always looking for lies and Freudian leaps, you're probably a very good liar. If that fits you, congratulations! Your genre is mystery and thriller. So mystery and thriller, I've put them in a combo just because they walk hand in hand. This genre uses and abuses of suspense, of what's coming next, so much so that you may have the urge to look at the end of the page just to finally see what is going to happen. Whenever I'm reading a thriller, I have to put a hand, or I don't know, I have to focus to not skip my eyes to the end. Usually these types of books are very fast-paced, and because they have the suspense, they get you hooked pretty good. They are usually not that long as well, so that's a good way to start reading. Last year, the combo of mystery and thriller along with true crime was second place in best sellings of books in North America. They have the second place in print sales, but they are actually number one in audiobooks. Some of the most popular books on this genre last year, according to Goodreads, were The Housemaid's Secret, None of This Is True, The Only One Left. Some of the overall most popular books according to the internet were anything by Agatha Christie, really, she's the queen of thriller and mystery, The Silent Patient, and Gone Girl. If you are a curious person, maybe too much. It's not that you're a pessimist, but you believe anything could happen to anyone at any time, so you want to be prepared for most worst case scenarios. People around you think you're paranoid, when in fact, you just want to be safe. If you identify, probably you are a true crime reader. Okay, so there's no denial that we love the grotesque, but in case of true crime books, they actually have an educational aspect to them. Women dominate the demographic of true crime readers, and it's believed that this is true because we are the main victims of such crimes, unfortunately. So a lot of us treat these types of stories as a way to learn and maybe possibly read some early signs of possible danger. However, the genre did have a decrease in popularity last year, not only because productions were treating true crime irresponsibly for profit and just to sell grotesque stories, but also because if you ever read or listened to any true crime podcasts, it can get repetitive over time, And if you're listening or reading these types of stories, very heavy and emotionally demanding stories, you may start to feel it and have an emotional toll on you. So it's normal to take a break from time to time from the genre. Some of the most popular books on Goodreads, not from last year, but overall, are In Cold Blood, Helter Skelter, The True Story of the Manson Murderers, The Stranger Beside Me, Ted Bundy, The Shocking Inside Story. Next one on the list. If you own a Ouija board. And if you don't, you wanted to, but you're too scared. In the end, it doesn't even matter if you believe in ghosts or not, you're still talking respectfully to the ones that live in your house. You are more scared of the living than of the dead. If you identify, well, you are a horror reader. So horror, we kind of know, it's a genre that explores the fear. However, just think about it, horror books have to deal with fear in a different way because they don't have jump scare. They don't have sound effects to make us feel uneasy. So it's kind of a hard thing to do. Horror books deals with fear in different facades. So you can feel fear by repulse from someone's imminent suffering or just fear of the unknown. So horror stories have always been around us, be it in fairy tales, folklores, or just in a religion's way to put rules on us. Horror books can work with our fears, but also with fears in society in general. So some of the most popular books on Goodreads from last year were Holy, How to Sell a Haunted House, A House with Good Bones, and internet's all-time favorites are Salem's Loot, Those Across the River, The Exorcist. I've read one horror book before, and it's oh my god, I forgot. I know the name in Portuguese, but I don't know the name in English. Dr. Jekyll and Hyde? The name escaped me right now, but I'll put it here. This book, I don't remember the story. It was a long time ago, but I remember that I was reading in the middle of the day, the sun was shining, birds were singing, I was in a garden, and I still felt shivers going up my spine. I don't even remember the plot, just vaguely, but I do remember feeling that sensation. Horror has a subgenre of gothic, so basically all the same things, but you're more interesting. Kidding. That is basically horror with romanticism. Gothic horror books usually works with discussions of morality, philosophy, and religion. So the terror here is worked in a way not that it's the main plot, but it's an element. More of a tool to develop the plot than just to unsettle us. Some Gothic recommendations are Dracula, The Depiction of Dorian Gray, The Fall of the House of Usher. You fit this next genre if you are stylish. You didn't even listen to it yet, but you know the Tortured Post Department is your Taylor Swift album. You pursue your personal goal, not giving a shit about society and what other people think. You love to learn, but you don't tell to people because it's more satisfying when they discover by themselves. If you fit the description, congratulations, you are a dark academia reader. Okay, so dark academia is not that it's new, but it's kind of new. Like, even people that likes dark academia, they don't really know how to explain fully the genre. So it's more of the vibes and the aesthetic. So the genre is a mix of gothic with academic setting. We usually have morally gray characters in an academic or like in college, university, in some kind of academic setting. We have one type of knowledge or subject used in the plot of the book, and we usually see characters like questioning the world around them and how things are perceived. This type of story. I've never read Dark Academia, but it really feels like my vibe. So some populars from last year were Hellbent, I Studied Drowning, Ink, Blood, Sister, Scribe. Some of the overall popular are The Secret History, If We Were Villains, and Ninth House. This next one, I felt offended. You're likely an introvert that wanted to do more in life, but you're too shy and or socially anxious to get out of your comfortable cocoon. Yeah, that's me. You have a vivid imagination, but it doesn't mean you're just only interested in fantastic and magic elements. If you fit that description, well, my friend, we are adventure book readers. So adventure books, they mix with a lot of other genres. You often find them as like an ingredient to a book. But the thing is, adventure books, usually they are fast-paced and they follow the very known by us now, the hero's arc. So you have a hero that starts in a common place and has this quest. We see the quest being resolved. You have the battle between hero and villain. It's very simple, but because it's simple, it's chef's kiss. Usually adventure books, they are more plot driven, not character, not all the time usually, but they don't get rid of the characters completely. So you have kind of a good mix here. So some of the most popular books overall are The Count of Monte Cristo, one of my favorite books of all time, The Hobbit, Into the Wild. Now it's you, the one who has a vivid imagination. If you don't really care about logic and reason because the real world is boring, and you may literally have a list of worlds and dimensions that you would love to be sent to. I'm talking about you, fantasy readers. Fantasy is one of the most popular genres among young readers. We have fantasy books for all tastes. This genre is all about escapism because we do have different worlds and things that are not real. We have dragons, we have epic battles, we have different settings and scenarios and creatures and people and places. It's all new. It's a completely different new world. We have some subgenres in fantasy, so we have high or epic fantasy, and that is basically Lord of the Rings. It's common to see it in a medieval setting, but it's a story that has fantastic elements in the entire universe. So the entire world is unreal, it's fantasy. We have low fantasy, and in this case, the world is real, so it's like our world, but magic exists. We just don't know about it. It's not part of our daily lives. So it's very common to see characters that discover that they have these superpowers or they have these abilities. This is low fantasy. We also have magical realism, and in this case, it is our real world and magic do play a part in our daily lives. So it's not something that is like unexpected. One perfect example of this is 100 Years of Solitude. That's magical realism. And finally, we have dark fantasy that makes fantasy with horror. So some popular books from last year on Goodreads were Hellbent, again, Trees of the Emerald Sea, A Day of Falling Night. Some of the most popular books overall are the Game of Thrones series, Narnia series, and The Lord of the Rings. Now let's talk about you who doesn't get intimidated by the number of books a series have. You who loves romance but the real world is boring and you love the idea of having superpowers. You probably have a Pinterest folder full of fan arts and comics from your favorite fictional couple. Second favorite genre would be fanfics about your favorite fictional couple. I'm talking about you, us, romantasy readers. Romantasy is a subgenre in fantasy, but it has become so popular because of TikTok and Instagram and social medias in general that it now is an entire literature genre by itself. Call it what you want to, but this genre is popping on social medias. And it's bringing more people, especially young people, to the habit of reading, and that's commendable. Yes, we like that. We like people reading more. We have more young adult romantasy books than adults, but we are starting to see the adult section expand. It's very common to find these types of books in series, so if you like a story or some character, chances are you can get more of it. Some of the most popular romantasy books from last year were Fourth Wing, Assistant to the Villain, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Some of the overall populars are Divine Rivals, A Court of Thorns and Roses, and Throne of Glass. So for our next type of reader, you are an intuitive person, but you rely more on the logical and rational part of your brain. You do like the fantastic atmosphere, but in its logic, so you need rules of how it works. It can't just be magic. Finally, your family asks you help with computer problems. If that's you, well, my friend, you are a sci-fi reader. So this genre uses science and technology, and honestly, sci-fi has a long history. It comes in different waves in different moments, following along different medias and pop culture, so I'm not talking about that in this video, that is too much, but I do recommend that you take a look at it if you're interested. So some of the best sci-fi books from last year were In the Lives of Puppets, Lightbringer, Starter Villain. Some of the overall favorites are Dune, A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Neuromancer. You who are not afraid to have feelings. You like happy endings and soft vibes, and honestly, you're getting tired of feeling ashamed for it. Your type is men written by women. Yes, I'm talking about romance readers. Even though it is completely misjudged, romance is the genre that sells most. It has grown in sales by 52% in 2023 compared to 2022, and roughly $1.44 billion in sale in North America. So yes, this genre is super popular, and people shouldn't feel ashamed of liking it. It's one of the most inclusive genres because, well, usually it's written by underrepresented people to other underrepresented people. The genre suffers judgment from other types of book readers simply because it's a book for you to read just for fun. You don't need to think. You can just... Life is already hard enough. Life is a constant bad ending. Why do you want a bad ending in your leisure time? Have I read a romance? No, I'm fixing that. But I love to find romance in other parts of books, so I might as well enjoy it, and I don't know. It also suffers from that idea, we all know of it, that things loved by women are shallow and uninteresting. Some of the most popular romance books from last year were Happy Place, Love Theoretically, and Yours Truly. Some of the best romance of all times are Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, and Outlander. Okay, now it's time for you! You who judge people that discover books on TikTok. You, the one that thinks young adult and fantasy books are childish. And you who thinks a book gets better just because the author is dead. Yes, I'm talking about you, classic readers, we know. I was one of you once. We know it's true. We know it's true. So classic's not a genre per se. It has all the other genres inside it, but it's how we call these types of books. So a classic book is a book that the story can be reinterpreted and reused through time. It doesn't matter if this story was written, 100 years before. It is still true today. You can still identify with the characters, with the society, with the discussion that is being placed there. It's a story that it still impacts pop culture and is used as reference. We tend to think that just because a book is old, it's classic, but that's not true. Some books, they just turn very old very easily. A lot of old books don't represent us anymore, and we do have a lot of still popular present books that we can consider classics. Of course, we consider them classics now because of the relevance they have in other types of medias and pop culture, etc. But the people in the future, if we have a future, they will decide if that book is a classic book. They often are used as a case of study, and usually when you read about the history and the culture from that time, the book turns more interesting. So if you're curious about like tendencies and references that we see nowadays, probably they are from classic books. Some of the best-selling classic books of all times are Pride and Prejudice, To Kill a Mockingbird, 100 Years of Solitude. Last but not least, we have the type of reader that has a broader vocabulary. You like tea better than coffee. Your books are never out of stock in the bookstore. I'm talking about you, poetry reader, you know that. The misunderstood, underappreciated poetry genre. Poetry is not a genre per se, just like the classics. We have other types of emotions being worked here. So we have poetry of love, so romance, we have horror, we have despair, anxiety, hope. We have poetries to all tastes. So why is poetry books so unpopular? One aspect of poetry books that people tend to believe, that is hard to understand poetry. Compared to prose, yeah, it's kinda, because poetry has this artistry when working with words. I've seen this perfect comparison when I was doing my research. If a book is a film, poetry is a song. So while books resonate with us and mark us, of course, poetry hits, you know? I do recommend you to take a look at some poetry books because they are not long, and you never know if that book will have that one poem that changed your life forever. A poem that you want printed and in a frame in your wall as a decor. Some popular poetry books from last year are Closer Baby Closer, Sweet Dark, Milk and Honey. And some popular overall are The Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson, The Raven and Other Poems, 20 Love Poems, and A Song of Despair. Okay everyone, we have our fighters here, and I hope you had some fun today. I hope this silly video and these roasting little jokes can inspire you to take a look at other genres and to give a chance to other genres and to stop being judgmental on other people's tastes. Because in the end, we all love books and we all just want to have fun reading them. I hope you had a good time, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!